Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be forgotten.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
Hello out there in quarantine land. This episode is going to be a little bit different. Depending on what order I actually decide to release these episodes in, this is likely the beginning of our quarantine episodes. So there's going to be a change in audio quality as we adapt to the new normal as well. And just as a gap filler between our regular in-studio episodes and the new remote episodes, pandemic-inspired, I'll be doing this solo episode, which will be going through some of the mysterious recordings that recording equipment has picked up through the years. Some of it has reasonable explanations, some of it is still unknown, but it's going to be a gallery of strange noises and my best thoughts on them. So, enjoy this episode, and next time you'll be back in studio with all three of us discussing something else. With proper social distancing, all of us at our own houses, doing the best we can with what we got. Enjoy.
So, what's your poison?
This is a real moonshine made in Saskatchewan somewhere, we assume, that was obtained, let's say, from an antiques dealer. It comes in a Seagram's bottle. It is perfectly clear, and I have never tasted it for fear of going blind. Here you go, Ood.
So there's a long history of moonshiners and people that produce semi-legal alcohol using interesting chemicals in order to strengthen their brew. So this is a legitimate threat of harming me, but for those out there in podcast land, I'm going to take a little sip. So this is honest to goodness real moonshine found inside of a cabinet. Yeah, that's about right. There's a little tingle that, it just hangs out with the back of your throat, way longer after you swallow it. Yeah, I don't know. So, I'm risking my life for you people. Well, not my life, just my eyesight. So, www.patreon.com/ovpod. Love you all. You're beautiful people. Okay, I was holding that in. Oh, that. So, just as a bedrock for a lot of what we're going to be going over here, I want people to be reminded of just how easily the human mind drifts towards patterns and trying to search for patterns. So when you're listening to the coming clips, you may hear angels singing in the distance, the sounds of hell, other mysterious disembodied voices. Random things that come from chaos is because your brain is desperately trying to make sense of something. And sometimes when it finds a storyline it likes, it goes along with it and shapes your perception along with it. But a lot of these don't have explanations, so let your imagination run wild for a little bit. What could these noises be? The first few sounds I'm going to play are going to be all underwater recordings. Throughout the world, at different research facilities, there are microphones in the oceans listening. Sometimes for seismic activity, sometimes listening to whales and other biological creatures. You know, there's all kinds of microphones studying all kinds of things around the globe, and they've picked up some sounds that don't yet have an official explanation. The upsweep is the first one of these. The upsweep was first recorded in 1991 by the Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory. Unlike a lot of the sounds I'm going to play, this one is seasonal. It goes away during the summer and the winter, and it seems to come back periodically in the spring and autumn. It's unclear whether this is due to changes in the source or changes in the environment that propagates the sound. The source can be roughly located at about 54 degrees south and 140 degrees west, near the location of known volcanic seismic activity. So these sounds are likely involved with volcanic seismic activity, but the exact mechanisms which create these sounds is unknown. Here is a recording of those sounds. The second ocean microphone captured mysterious sound we'll be talking about is the very well-known bloop. Now, a lot of people know bloop by the sped-up version of the sound. That is this one right here. But when played at actual speed, it is actually much slower. 16 times slower than the audio clip that is regularly released when this bloop clip, becomes viral on the internet once again. This is a recording of the regular, as recorded version of the bloop. Now, just what is the bloop? It was captured in 1997 by deep-sea microphones, and they are some of the loudest sounds ever recorded in the Earth's oceans. It was places occurring several times off the southern coast of South America and was audible 5,000 kilometers away on different microphones, 5,000 kilometers away. Some people have theorized that it has similarities, the sounds in the bloop, to living organisms, but not even a blue whale is large enough to croon this loud. The sounds point to a hypothesis that maybe even larger life forms lurk in the unexplored darknesses of Earth's oceans. Now, those are just hypotheses. Those are just ideas for what could be explaining the sound. It could be geologic activity. It could be icebergs or floating ice rubbing against one another. Or it could be something else that we don't understand yet, some phenomenon we're not aware of, or that we don't understand. So for this next clip, I'm not going to tell you what it's referred to, because it may set your mind up to hear that sound. First, I'm going to play it clean for you right now. And now I'm going to tell you what it's called. This recording is called Julia. It was a sound recorded on March 1st, 1999 by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And they said the sound was most likely a large iceberg that had run aground off Antarctica. So ice scraping against ice or ice scraping against rock, something like that. It was loud enough to be heard over the entire equatorial Pacific Ocean hydrophone array, meaning that it was heard on microphones all around the Pacific Ocean. And it lasted about 15 seconds. And people think that it sounds like somebody saying Julia. So here it is again, judge for yourself. And once again, there is 2 different versions that are often released when this sound surfaces on the internet. It is the original version, and then the 16 times sped up version. Of course, the 16 times sped up version is the one that sounds like Julia, but I will play both in sequence here. This next one is called the Slowdown. It is theorized to be created by giant sheets of ice in Antarctica grinding against the land beneath. Literally trillions of tons of ice grinding against the land beneath it, and over 7 minutes, slowly slowing down. And as it slows down and the friction increases, the frequency lowers of this sound. Now, the entire sound is 7 minutes long, so I'm just going to play you a little clip of it, but this is the mysterious sound with a hypothesis for where it comes from, but no official explanation. The Slowdown. Moving above water, here is a sound that was recorded and spread around by news stations, conspiracy theorists, religious people, about the One World Trade Center during its construction. As it was being constructed, there were various recordings made of wailing and screaming coming from its construction site. When it was investigated, it was found that certain features in its construction worked the same way as blowing on the top of a Coke bottle. It made that same little humming sound, except at the size of a building, it sounded like wailing. Anyways, here's a recording of that. Imagine if you were listening to this without knowing what it was. You might think it was haunted too. This next set of recordings is a collection of phenomena known as skyquakes, or mist poofers, as some parts of the world call them. They've been heard all over the world, from Australia to India to the USA itself. And there's a bunch of explanations for these sounds. They range from giant grinding sounds in the distance, to cannon fire in the distance, to a tone that seems to rise in intensity, like trumpets in the distance. And of course, you can't explain every one of these sounds and find the direct source for every one of these sounds, so some of them are going to go down in history as unexplained. But these sounds have to come from somewhere, and there are simple explanations for where these could come from. For grinding in the distance, maybe it's some guy in his workshop in the hills, sharpening an axe, grinding against a stone. That kind of sound echoing through a valley can carry a long ways. It can be something as simple as frostquakes, when meltwater goes under the ground and freezes again when the temperature drops, causing cracks in the rocks and soil. Sometimes those cracks can be echoed and can be loud. Sometimes it's echoes of a distant lightning strike, or a sonic boom, or some weather phenomenon, or something, again, that we don't really know about. Anyways, here's a compilation of the best skyquake videos I could find. Now, these are very, very easy to fake. All you have to do is have somebody saying, "Ooh, wow, what's that?" in a backyard and paste some loud sound over top of it. But these are the ones that I found that seem quote-unquote authentic. But, listener, beware.
Where's it coming from? Where? I've never heard out like it. I've never heard out like this before. Sounds like ships, horns.
Give me my phone real quick. Dude, it's it.
Mistä vitusta toi tulee?
Just for a fun one, this is the sound the Arctic minke whale produces. It's been described as a bioduck. I think it sounds funny. Another whale, a hybrid blue whale, is often described as the loneliest animal on Earth. Its song is sung at 52 hertz, while all other blue whales out there sing their songs between 10 hertz and 40 hertz. This whale started being detected in 1990, and scientists have kept track of it ever since. It is following average blue whale navigation route, doing circles from north to south from the tips down of California all the way up to Alaska, over and over again, singing its song, looking for a pod, looking for a lover, and no whales will ever be able to hear its sound. And even though blue whales are immense creatures, if nobody else can hear you sing your song in a place as big as the ocean, it seems like it's going to be a lonely existence. This whale is kept track of to this day. Its call has gotten deeper and deeper over time, suggesting that it's maturing, getting older by itself. Here is the 52 hertz whale. UVB-76. An unusual radio station in the heart of Russia that plays many, many tones per minute. 25 tones per minute, 24 hours per day. The buzzer is sometimes interrupted and a voice in Russian takes place. But most of the time, it's just transmitting that buzz over and over and over again. Most of the time, it's just people speaking Russian, giving lines of letters, names, and numbers, almost as a radio test of sorts. Sometimes, however, pieces of conversations are caught, such as where a generator comes from, and where one can go to get a generator. Sometimes things on the station get even stranger, including the buzzer, which has been playing that buzz for years and years, very rarely being replaced with a recording from Swan Lake, such as this. And at one point, radio enthusiasts that have been listening to this radio station for years caught the sound of a woman screaming. Now, what is this station? It has been broadcasting 24 hours a day since 1973, mostly tones. Sometimes Russian people break in to do strings of letters and numbers, and even more rarely, sometimes screaming, music, and conversations is heard. Well, according to the Russians, especially the Minister of Communications and Informatics in Russia, has said that the voice messages are to check to make sure that receiving stations are alert and receiving messages successfully, and that those stations are always being listened to as a sort of way to set your own radio station as long as you can hear this one. That sounds like a reasonable enough explanation, but of course, it may not be the actual explanation. One that has been posited is that it is a way to communicate with spies, both overseas and abroad. There's a reason that this radio station can be picked up all over. Maybe it's to test Russian radio stations worldwide. Maybe it's to inform spies. Or some option C. Anyways, here is the recording of a collection of UVB-76 oddities.
Василий, Женя, Цапля, Харитон, 26, 766, Николай, Елена, Ульяна, Михаил, Николай, Иры, Иван Краткий, 67, 70, 52, 94.
Imagine you were a Vietnamese soldier in 1970, defending against the Americans invading your country. In the middle of the night, blaring through the forest, you suddenly hear, in your language, the disembodied voices of what seem to be wailing ghosts, a young girl and a dead Vietnamese man, warning his still living comrades that he is currently in hell and that they should return home or surrender lest they end up like him. This is a recording used by Americans against the Vietnamese sources during the Vietnam War. Another result of the North American Psychological Operations Division. Maybe we'll go over them one day in one of our episodes. PsyOps during wartime. But for now, here is what's known as Operation Wandering Soul, also known as Ghost Tape Number 10.
Vợ tôi Bà đang về với con. Tôi đã về với mình đây. Nhưng tôi còn đâu mảnh nào nữa. Tôi đã chết rồi má con đây ở. Tôi không không biết lần nào.
A musical instrument called the Aztec death whistle. Innocent enough. A cute-sounding name. Surely it can't sound as frightening as the name suggests. This instrument was used by Aztec people for special ceremonies, such as celebrating the Day of the Dead, religious rituals, during human sacrifice, or for intimidating enemies during battle. I think the whistle is aptly named because to me it sounds like the wailing of the dead. But judge for yourself. Interesting little instrument either way.
So this is very intimidating instruments, and this is very unique. So this is the dead whistle. Dead whistle.
What I'm about to play you is the Song of Two Sand Dunes. Now, scientists have a lot of explanations, a lot of hypotheses for how these sand dunes could be singing. Perhaps waves of sound are produced when the micro-avalanche of sand particles goes down the side of the sand dune, rubbing against other sand particles. Maybe that can produce this tone. Maybe the vibrations from these flowing sand grains synchronize and combine to push air together, like a speaker or a diaphragm. The singing is produced by the contrast in the acoustic properties between the sand and the hard layer of rock beneath it. Perhaps there's an interaction between the flowing sand and the hard rock beneath it that produces those vibrations. But there is no real consensus to how these sands are able to create sounds. But I'm going to play the recordings of two sand dunes in two deserts, one in Oman and one in Morocco. Enjoy. What I'm about to play you is called an ice quake. Those of you that have been ice fishing, especially in the months that are getting close to spring, you probably have heard this sound. It sounds like the pinging of a spring, or little laser gun fires, or a little echoey plastic toy, except on a grand scale, as all this ice that you're standing upon is beginning to melt and crack and press against each other, very much like tectonic plates, and it produces a whole bunch of sounds. Here is a recording of that, although these are of the laser fire variety. They can come in pops and crashes and screeches and all kinds of sounds. Here you go. This next one is the first known recording of a human voice, and it was recorded singing. It was recorded around 1860, and it's a very distorted version of the French folk song Au clair de la lune. I probably didn't pronounce that correctly at all. The Mosquito was a security device created in 2005 designed to create a high-frequency noise purely to annoy people under a certain age. It had many different settings, where under a certain hertz, or kilohertz as it were, you can annoy people of a certain age. Our ability to hear high-frequency sounds diminishes as we age, so playing a super high-frequency sound tuned to the ears of, say, somebody that was below age 24 would annoy them and leave everybody else unharmed, theoretically. This device did not gain wide adoption, but nonetheless, it's kind of a funny point in audio human history. So here's a recording of the Mosquito device. First I'll play the 17 kilohertz, to annoy 24 and below, age 24 and below. Then I'll play the 16 kilohertz to annoy those age 30 and below. The 14 kilohertz designed to annoy those under age 60. And 10 kilohertz designed to annoy those aged 85 and below. I'll just play a couple seconds of each. Not nearly as widely known as the Russian number stations, but known all the less, is the Yosemite Sam transmission. It was first discovered in 2004, and it broadcasts on various frequencies, and it seems to have a brief buzzing sound that lasts around 800 milliseconds, which may be the transmission of some type of encrypted data. And then it plays a soundbite from a 1950s cartoon from Looney Tunes known as Bunker Hill Bunny, in which Yosemite Sam is heard saying his classic line, "Varmint, I'm gonna blow you to smithereens." And it repeats this transmission on each frequency it broadcasts on every 2 minutes. It's still going. Nobody knows why. Here's a clip. Yet another of these mysterious broadcasters is the Lincolnshire Poacher. Perhaps even more famous than UVB-76 is the mysterious Lincolnshire Poacher. It basically begins by having several bits of music from the classic folk song, followed by a female voice that reads out a series of numbers. The voice is electronically synthesized, but yet speaks with an English accent and places an emphasis on the last word of each transmission. It started broadcasting in the mid-1970s and didn't stop until June 2008. People still don't know where the source was or who put it forward. The British don't admit to it being a signal check station. They don't admit to anything. Who knows what this could be? Maybe another way to communicate with spies. Lists of numbers can be translated into orders and movements, after all. Here is a recording of the Lincolnshire Poacher. Despite its name, the backwards music station does not sound much like a music station playing music backwards. It sounds more like screeches and scratching and scraping and grinding of metal, accompanied by static and whirring. It has been broadcasted on various changing radio frequencies in a number of countries, and the signal has been tracked down to be somewhere in the United States and somewhere in the United Kingdom, thought to be broadcasting not always at the same time, but they have been broadcasting at the same time. And we don't know what its purpose is. Maybe it's sending encrypted messages? Or it could be just playing feedback from other open channels. Maybe like a feedback station of sorts. But here is a clipping from the backwards music station. In 2002, when the Cassini spacecraft passed by Saturn, it tuned its radio antenna to the direction of the planet. It found some eerie sounds. Apparently, the radio tones around Saturn have rising and falling tones that produce these eerie noises, as recorded by NASA and the Cassini spacecraft. Apparently, these rising and falling tones aren't that dissimilar from Earth's own auroral radio emissions. Space Enigma, known as Radio Source SHGB02 plus 14A, is known for both its mystery and its overly complicated name. Although mysterious transmissions from space aren't very rare, this one is known throughout the community as being one of the great potentials. Out of 200 candidates, it was selected by the Arecibo Radio Telescope and by the SETI Home Project as being of high potential value for alien communication. Again, no proof. This is just speculation, but based on what they found from the signal, it has a high potentiality. Its frequency is around 1420 megahertz, and that's been noted that to be a frequency which the element hydrogen readily absorbs and emits, meaning that aliens may be using this frequency to use hydrogen to transmit it. But it's been dismissed officially as an extraterrestrial transmission by SETI. It just has a lot of potential, and its origins remain completely unidentified. The Rosetta mission to Comet 67P was a landmark moment in space exploration history, because we landed a probe going super fast on a comet also going super fast. It's like trying to hit a bullet with a bullet, and we pulled it off. However, when the Rosetta spacecraft came within about 100 kilometers of 67P, it began to record a strange song emitting from the comet's surface. The theorized explanation from this are oscillations in the magnetic field around the comet, causing them to become electrically charged. So these magnetic fields around this comet are oscillating and becoming charged, which is interfering with the recording equipment on the Rosetta probe. However, no official explanation has been landed. It is just an interesting little ditty put out by the first comet we managed to land on. During a February 2013 showing of the Steve Wilkos Show, which is like the redheaded stepchild of Jerry Springer, a mysterious broadcast overtook the program. Somebody had hacked or tricked several TV stations or some organization into playing this broadcast. What was the broadcast for? It was a public service announcement about a false zombie apocalypse taking place.
So you will if I tell you that all will change first, right? But if I show you, don't even talk to me, dude. But if I show you, I mean, it might take a month or two, a couple months, you know? But if I show you...
Civil authorities in your area have reported that the bodies of the dead are rising from their graves and attacking the living. Follow the messages on screen that will be updated as information becomes available. Do not attempt to approach or apprehend these bodies as they are considered extremely dangerous.
On November 26, 1977, a news broadcast was interrupted by a voice claiming to be an alien, an extraterrestrial being. The being introduced itself as Verilion from the Ashtar Galactic Command. It said that we should enter the period of Aquarius Weapons of evil should be destroyed, and we should all learn to live together in peace or leave the galaxy. The broadcast was largely considered a hoax, but that didn't stop hundreds of people from calling in to the police station to report this incident. But the source of the transmission and the culprits responsible were never found.
The Rhodesian nationalist leader, Bishop Abel Muzorewa, has accepted Mr. Smith's offer to negotiate an internal settlement based on one man, one vote. But, he says, there are conditions. These include stopping the execution of all captured prisoners of war, allowing Giroux to take negotiation, being arrested. In Australia, Mr. Kerry Packer's cricketers are still pleading yesterday's High Court decision, which lifts the ban on them playing in Test matches.
This is the voice of Omar, representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you. For many years you have seen us as lights in the skies. We speak to you now to service them as we have done to your brothers and sisters all over this, your planet Earth. We come to warn you of the destiny of your race and your world so that you may communicate to your fellow beings the course you must take to avoid the disaster which threatens your world and the beings on other worlds around you. This is in order that you may share in the great awakening as the planet passes into the new age of Aquarius. The new age can be a time of great peace and evolution for your race, but only your rulers are made aware of evil forces that can overshadow their judgments. Be still now, and listen, for your chance may not come again. All your weapons of evil must be removed. The time for conflict is now past, and the race of which you are a part may proceed to the higher stages of its evolution, if you show yourselves worthy to do this. You have but a short time to learn to live together in peace and goodwill.
Playing us out this episode, the Wolverine Blues, all the way back from 1923, being played by the New Orleans Rhythm Kings. Enjoy and see you in the after show. Hey, it's Ood with the After Show. A while back, I almost sarcastically asked for you guys to send us questions. Questions that you guys have about your own lives. Hey guys, I wanted to let you know that I love your podcast so much. I may not always agree with everything you say. I wouldn't expect you to, we're kind of idiots. But that's okay, and it's fun to listen to a group of friends just having a fun time. I wanted to get some relationship advice, and I wasn't sure who to talk to. I love my boyfriend, and he's an amazing person, but we recently found out and talked about how we really aren't sexually compatible. We have so much fun together, but I've started feeling like we're just good friends and not actually in a relationship. He told me a few days ago that he finds me physically attractive, but not sexually attractive. Not going to lie, that really hurt me a lot. He watches porn every day and talks about more sexual stuff, but it hurts me more than ever that he'd never want to do that stuff with me. I guess I know what I'm going to do, I just want to talk to somebody about it. It's really brought my self-esteem way down. I don't know if I could ever be truly happy spending the rest of my life like this. I know sometimes an open relationship works for some people, it just wouldn't work for me because I only want to have sex with someone I love, and I want that extra closeness with him. Anyways, love you guys, and keep up the good work. Well, I think, now bear in mind that I am not the arbiter of good relationship advice. I've made mistakes, and I've been selfish, and I've had behaviors that are abusive in relationships. So, take this with a big grain of salt, but I think you did a lot to answer your own questions. I think you figured out that you're not sexually compatible. It's not his fault that he doesn't find you sexually attractive. He didn't do anything wrong to not find you sexually attractive. He just doesn't. And you want to have sex with that one person that you feel close with. And it sounds like he may not be compatible with that vision of your future. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to sacrifice my sex life to be with this person in the future? Or do I want to take a chance and find somebody new and enact that vision that I see? I know what I would do. I would break up with him and hope to find something more suited to what I need. It'll be hard for a bit. You'll feel lost. You'll feel like half yourself is gone. But lo and behold, you'll heal in time. That's my advice. I would say break it off and find somebody new. Somebody that you're more compatible with. Because life fucks you the wrong way. I think it's good that we can all go on and hopefully dream to find someone to fuck us the right way. For Occultae Veritatis, I'm Ood Gallifrey. Have a lovely night.